working is supposed to be fun, is supposed to instill wonder and excitement. And if there's no excitement, you're not doing the right thing, and you're not being the best way that you can be.
Hello and welcome to the Ronny Leber Show, where every week we bring you fascinating guests with inspiring stories of success and overcoming obstacles from the world of sports, business and entertainment. To support this channel, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell and hit the like button so that we can deliver you the best content possible. He's a sportive and creative artist. He grew up in a family of musicians. His mom wrote the title song of the hit series Inspector Rex, and his aunt was even part of Wham! As a little kid, he was on stage with Michael's little sister, Latoya Jackson. At the age of 17, he toured for 5 years with other music artists. Taking a sidestep in his career, he worked for 5 years as a carer for handicapped adults, as well as a fitness trainer. He has been writing songs for pretty much as long as he can write. He brought home the third place for Austria at the Eurovision Song Contest in 2018. And his single, Nobody But You, was 5 weeks on top of the charts. He was a runner-up at Dancing Stars, and now he's getting ready for an acting career, joining us live from Vienna, Austria to talk with us about how music and creativity can impact your life. I'm happy to have him on the show. Please welcome, here is Cesár Sampson.
Hey there, Ronny.
Hi. Wow, I'm so happy and thrilled to have you on the show. And when you hear all of those accolades, everything that you have already achieved at the tender young age of just having turned 40, what comes to mind to you?
Well, to me, all these different stages still pretty much feel like they were all happening yesterday. I'm very much connected to all of these facets, and I still think that I'm taking and gleaning something from all of these different careers and different life stories that I've had. I've never really left anything behind. I use my interpersonal skills that I acquired as a carer for handicapped adults on a daily basis, because we all are, in some sense, unable to be like the other person. We all have to exhibit flexibility to understand the opposite person and to properly support each other. When it comes to sports, it gave me kind of a mentality that everything has to be structured. If I want to achieve a certain goal, that applies very well to a lot of other aspects in life. And musician, that's been me from day one. So it's really all right there.
Musician has been you from day one, you just said, and many people wouldn't believe that you were actually a shy kid, or so I've heard. And was it clear for you, coming from a musical family, that you would become a musician, or was it were there also some other things in mind that you had, like maybe becoming a tax accountant or becoming I don't know, a professional sports athlete or something, or was it always clear it's going to be a musician?
I don't know if that's an artist thing or a music thing, but growing up, my mom never told me that being a musician is a job. So it was just something that we did. That's just something that the household was all about, creating music and recording music and performing. And there was never any conversation about the future in terms of like zoning into a career. The word career was never uttered actually in our household. So I had plenty of ideas what I'm going to be in the future, because I'd never thought that music has to compete with any of that. At a time, I had a few years, like very early on, 4 to 6, where I wanted to be like an investigative reporter or maybe a private detective. I loved like solving stuff. I love also finding out secrets. That's a big passion of mine. I love riddles and stuff like that. Then for a while, I thought I'd be really good at being like an advert slogan writer. I love like putting like that final sentence that kind of encapsulates the whole concept. I love putting things simple. That's why I love writing music, where you're actually forced to really succinctly encapsulate a feeling in very few words. I like that aspect about writing for music. So maybe that was the reason back then.
It sounds to me like you already, as a little kid, were drawn to creativity.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I even had a radio show. I recorded
Really?
my own radio show. Yeah, I recorded a radio show when I was 4. and I would have guests. I would force them to be my guests.
Did you play the guests, or you really had real
No,
guests?
no. Anybody who came to the house had to be my guest. Yeah, but they also had to be like they also had to since there was no real ads, we had to create ads, and they also I wanted them to play along and to become all these different roles. So now we're advertising some detergent and we're making up the product, and I wanted that person to suddenly act like a testimonial, like I've been using this since last week, and now my boxer shorts are much more clean and stuff like that. So I had that whole thing, but it was very frustrating because all my friends, they were not as loose as I was, and I was always frustrated that they couldn't play along properly.
So did you get in fights or arguments? Like, come on, you got to play this better.
I coached them a little bit, but it was hard sometimes.
That's awesome. And when you're talking about like that music was always around in your family, like I at some point some years ago, the dad of David Alaba, who now plays for Real Madrid and who was a big soccer star, of course, for Austria, he was also a musician. Like he was a
A DJ,
rapper.
no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a DJ and rapper, and also he said, and now his daughter is also a singer, and he said that always when there was Christmas, like everybody would play an instrument and they would like sit around and sing, the whole family and so on. Was it the same with you? Or I mean, especially at Christmas, did you have to hear to Last Christmas every year all the time, or how is that with your aunt
No,
being
not at
away?
all. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, we never had a big like music listening culture at home. We were usually just making music. So there was maybe like two or three artists in total that my mom would listen to. For example, she would listen to Prince, and then the odd artists left and right. But we wouldn't like be like hugely into listening to music. There was just not enough time. You know, we had the whole setup at home. There were pianos and keyboards, and there's a thing, you cannot listen to music and play music at the same time. You have to choose one. You know, and so that never came up. You know, we did make music when we had these parties and festivities, especially like freestyle music. I grew up on a very improvisational brand of music. My mom was also a virtuoso pianist who just could play without any prep. And I would usually be the rhythm part. Back then, I was a young percussionist. Percussion was my first instrument that I actually studied and I went to teachers for. And usually would be her on the piano, me on the percussions. Yeah.
So take us with you. How did your career as a musician evolve? Like how did you become a musician? Because I mean, how old were you when you were on stage with Latoya Jackson?
I was in a music video with Latoya Jackson, and I was 5 or something. Yeah, I was 5 years old, and it was just that thing. Austria, as it still is, was a very small music scene. So Dolezal and Rossacher, the director duo that was charged with creating that music video for Latoya, they just knew about my mom as a singer, and they knew she has a kid who can't stop dancing, and that was me. You know, so I was that kid that wherever my mom took me, I would just start dancing, and I had this thing that I would really forget about people being in the room when I danced. I didn't dance as a performance; I just danced, you know. And so I was that kid, and so they thought, oh, doesn't your boy want to be in that video? And that was basically. There was not much more to it. Yeah.
Let's have a
When
kid
did
dancing in the background to make it more cute.
Yeah, it was that. And then I was so nervous because I was highly aware that this is Michael Jackson's sister, that I was completely in love with her, and I forgot all my dance steps. I had my worst dancing day in my entire life, but it didn't matter because they just wanted me to look cute anyway.
So how did you become then a musician?
I would say the moment when I realized that I am a musician now is, of course, when I got paid for it for the first time. That is really when it starts being a transactional thing, when it starts being a service, and when you realize you're doing work. Before that, you don't realize you're doing work. I think my first gig was, I think it was singing for a commercial. Again, I had done some charity, like it was a USA for Africa type thing. My mom was invited. I came along. I sang a small verse on or a small part in a mid eight, and then they realized, hey, you have a singing son. And then suddenly those offers started drizzling in. And I did a commercial for RTL or something. I think RTL was my first one.
German TV
And
station.
yeah, German TV. I still remember because like on the phone, the receptionist or whoever that was asking me, so what are your rates? And I didn't know. I didn't know what you get for that. And so I asked my mom, what should I tell them what my rates are? And I think I was maybe it was 16 or something like that. And she just told me a number, and I never was a huge numbers guy. I did not know if that's a lot or a little. I just told that exact number to them. Later on, I found out that is what established jingle singers get, like grown up established jingle singers. The funny thing though is what they just gave it to me. And so from that moment on, I never I never had that period where I had to lower my rates for anything, because it just started like that. And it's always like that. If you're not aware that something is a lot, people are more inclined to give it to you.
Because you own it, because you really believe that
Yeah,
this is what it's worth. Because
exactly. Yeah,
it's really a mindset thing. And when you are like, when you're charging, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, but when you're charging something and your brain is actually telling you, like, who are you kidding? You're really asking this for actually that. And
exactly.
oftentimes or sometimes it happens that you undervalue your own worth, or your own, because for you it's like, well, I'm just singing, or it's just fun, or whatever you're doing, like it's nothing, or it's very easy. But for somebody else, it's a big thing.
Yeah. And that is really where your parents, if you're blessed enough to have parents in the industry, is where they can really like give you a support that you might have to build for years and years. Because I know my other colleagues, other singers who never had like musical parents, they had to develop that and go through stints of imposter syndrome until they really understood what they're bringing to the table. And I never had that with music. I had it with other things, but with music, I never had imposter syndrome.
When you said before, like, the moment that you first got paid, it turned from a hobby into a job. Was it also when your mindset shifted? Because when I take sports, and I know that you're also a big soccer fan or a Bayern Munich fan.
No, Bayern Munich fan, I'm not. I'm not a
You're
Bayern
not a
Munich
Bayern
fan.
Munich fan.
No, no, no.
Okay, what
I'm a
what
Real
team?
Madrid fan,
Real Madrid. Okay,
which
you
makes
go.
me an adversary of Bayern Munich.
Well, that's good. All right. So, but anyway, like, whatever professional soccer player, like, usually for kids, if they play soccer, it's fun. It's like, oh, we love to play, and you just every minute you go out and play, and you just play it and have fun. At some point, you're actually making money with it, and that also means there is pressure coming from the outside, because there are expectations building. There is something building, like people want you to perform, and you're getting paid to perform. This means you need to perform all the time. Was it also when your mindset then switched from just having fun to actually, well, now I actually need to bring something?
To a certain degree, it wasn't so much the pressure part of it, but it was the part that for the first time I had to balance out what I do for fun and what I do. Like there are like, into the picture came a few things that I probably wouldn't have done if there was no money involved. And before that, there wasn't such an aspect to it. I would have never done anything that just didn't give me the greatest amount of joy. And suddenly you were at a point where you said, I am doing it because I can do it, I know how to do it, and I'm getting paid for it. But maybe it's boring, maybe it's not challenging, maybe it's this and this and that. So suddenly there was an aspect to this that felt like I'm getting something, but also giving something that I usually wouldn't give. So that's what professional music making felt like. And for a long time, I early on I wrestled with that, because of course, still being young, the only thing that can make that okay for you is when you know what makes you happy. If you know what really makes you happy, you can say, okay, I spend half of my time doing that, and the other half I do something that makes sense. But if you're still finding yourself, you end up making 90% stuff that doesn't make you happy, and just for the money. And that's when I also got a bit burnt out from it. Yeah.
And talking about that, getting burned out, because when you were 17, you were touring for several years with big giants like Kruger and Dorfmeister, for example, like with different groups and different bands. You were on tour, and then at some point, you actually sidestepped your from your musician career into becoming a social worker as a caretaker for handicapped adults. How did that come along? And also, what did you take out of those years for your career?
Yeah, that's I would say that that period of time was the most important period of time up until now, really, because
When was that? Like, how old were you when you started
when I started as
as
as a
a
carer,
caretaker? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think I was 21, 21 or 22 or something. Yeah. So there was this time when I felt the more I did in terms of music, it felt more and more like I'm doing nothing. So I felt like I felt a huge amount of inner stress coming up that didn't have any kind of tangible reason around. I felt like I'm never doing enough. I was at one point, I was playing a show in Rome, flying back, waiting at the airport for another project. I didn't even go home or repack or anything. I would just go on the other thing somewhere in Germany. Right after that, I would come back to a diesel show. I was modeling back then. I would do like 3 day binges of working, and afterward feel like I'm not doing anything. You know, so that's where I was, and thank God something in me, I wasn't very mature at all, but something in me just told me to just stop, to just stop, and told myself I'm still young. I don't have to achieve anything in specific, especially if I don't know if I'm being happy doing it. If I'm especially from an artist perspective, you always, like, I saw my mom and she was doing what her artistry she was doing what her artistry demanded her to do. She knew what her artistry was. And I realized I don't know it. So I took a step back and I was like, okay, I guess I have to find that, because I want that. I don't just want to make money doing music. I wanted to have that feeling that I'm expressing myself in an artistic way according to what is inside me. And I knew I was just too young for that. So I took a break. Yeah. And,
So,
and, and,
yeah. It was a way to ground
and
you as well. Like, it was a way to actually
yeah.
to, because the music industry can quite take you away. Like, it's fancy, it's shiny, new things. You get to know a lot of people, and sometimes they don't have the best intentions for you. And at the same time, but it's like you are also in a stage of your life where you're discovering who you really are, who you are inside. Was this also a way to discover that for you?
Yeah, looking back, definitely. I mean, if you would have asked me at that moment, I wouldn't have been able to put it into words. I was very confused, I think, back then. I did a lot of stuff on instinct. Thank God I do have an instinct. I think when you grow up as an artistic kid, you do have more than the average young person. You do have something that comes from inside, and it tells you when you're not doing it. Um, uh, I think the average person that maybe for a long time doesn't know what their talent and what their passion is would be less equipped to make such a step, especially if the world tells you you're being successful. You know, the world told me I'm being successful. I was getting more money than anybody my age and everything, but still, I had enough of myself to say, I'm not feeling good. Let's just take a step back. You know,
Because success is, of course, something that is that only you can decide for yourself, and that is a feeling on the inside. So
exactly.
when you why care for handicapped adults?
Yeah, really. That it was not planned. It was not by design. I would say I was the average teenager, 19, 20 years old. Nobody my age wanted to look at people that they considered to be disadvantaged or poor or anything. Like, nobody wanted to surround themselves with anything like that. And I'm sure I had the exact same prejudices as everyone has, or most people have, especially men have. The field of healthcare and the field of handicapped people care is extremely unbalanced in terms of male and females. There are not many men that decide to go into that field. But I was just basically trying to see what's next. And my mom said, "What's very smart? If you don't know what to do, just help somebody. Like if you don't know what to do, you have to do something for someone." And I was just following her lead, and then there was one thing. I mean, I was in such a career mode that I had a lawyer at that time, kind of weaving his magic, so I don't have to go to social to the TV dienst, we call it in Austria, like the opposite
Social
of
service or
military.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a lawyer who kept that from me because I never wanted to do that. I wanted to be successful, and at that point I was just saying, okay, let's do that. Let's do community service that year. That's compulsory, and I did that. And from that, I just realized I have a talent. I have a passion for it, and then that organization that I did that year for, they asked me if I don't want to cross over and do this as a full-time job.
When you say that you have a passion or talent also for that, how does that also help you in communicating with other people? Because obviously in your life, also now being back in the creative part and so on, and having to deal with people, negotiating with people, being on stage in front of people, all those kind of things. How do those experiences of having learned how to take care of others, and also maybe even in this intuition and empathy that you develop in that, how does that help you in your life today?
I think empathy is extremely helpful in social interactions, of course. But I think the biggest takeaway that I had from that time as a carer was more exercising acceptance, toning down your expectations for the world, and in every, because there's a certain form of ignorance attached to these expectations. You always say, "Oh, I wouldn't do that, so I want the other person also to not do that." Isn't that fair? And it sounds fair on the surface, but it isn't real. It's not how the world works. And if you really want to get the most out of everybody and out of every interaction, you have to really accept people for who they are and deal with them on that basis, and find commonality in who they actually are, and not who you want them to be. And one thing a handicapped person that is also mentally handicapped usually is authentic. They just confront you with the way they are. They're not gonna like shift and twist themselves into what they think you want to see. And as much as I learned to take care of them, they taught me to understand how people actually are. Even the ones who are considered healthy, still there is a bunch of things that they cannot change. They just are like that. And that helps me in the social situations every day now. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. And also when you were talking about expectations, there one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, he has this famous quote that is, the moment that you change your expectation for appreciation, your whole life will change.
So true. So true.
And it's incredible. Another thing, what you did after your career stint as a carer was that you worked as a fitness coach. So
Yeah.
also you studied sports, and I mean, everybody who has ever seen you can absolutely state that you also look like a fitness coach. Like you look like you're
I
taking
try.
care of your body. And how does sports play a role in your life? And also, what is the connection for you between sports and music?
Okay. So when I started the life of a health and strength and conditioning coach, I just basically learned that everything that you want, you have to first know what you want from anything. Like if you work with your body, you work with the realities, and everything becomes demystified. The average person goes through life just experiencing stuff and never really investigating what came together to create what happened. In sports, it's you have the mentality everything has a compounded reason, and it's your job to find out what these reasons are. And then you like if you look at problems and you reverse engineer those factors that come together, then you can concoct a method to solve that problem. And to understand that and to really learn to break down problems into all the different contributing factors, that's something that I hadn't known that I didn't know how to do before. I didn't even understand it. So everything, even working with my voice, preparing a performance, for me that was all, maybe I feel good on the day, or maybe it's the magic is going to be right. But I never understood 99.9% of that magic is understanding all the factors, and just looking at them honestly and seeing if they're up, if they're where they're supposed to be. And then the magic is the final piece. The magic is something that you just let happen, but you have to lay the groundworks, and that's how I apply that to everything now.
So basically, you need to bring yourself in the right state of mind, or in the right state also of your body, in order to be able to perform. Like when you take an Olympic athlete, for example, it's not a coincidence that Michael Phelps has won more than 20 gold medals, because he knew exactly how to be in that given moment, ready with his body and with his mind. So for you and with your learnings, how do you be in the right state at the given time when you want to perform something?
Yeah, in my case, I know myself now to be a person who's is rather under engaged than over engaged. I'm a fairly laid back person. My baseline of tension is quite low. So for me, it's more creating order in order to just for me to feel safe, just going all out. It's hard to go all out if you lack stability, and if you want to have a performance, you need to create like stable factors that you can just rely on, and then you can just open up and let it out. Other people need to find ways to channel their higher level of tension and high level of energy output. They're sometimes too all the time over the top, and they need to rein it in. For me, it was different. I was self limiting myself in many ways so much. So I needed a different approach. I think everybody needs a different approach. I'm not the kind of person who's overly nervous. I need it the other way around.
So if I understand you correctly, it's basically to really figure out what is your level of tension that you feel comfortable with, or that is your comfort
Yeah.
zone. That
Yeah.
is also a level of tension where you perform your best,
Yeah.
basically. And then to bring yourself in that state, to not be over it, to not be under it. And
Yeah.
then in this range, this is where the magic happens.
Exactly. Couldn't have
Okay,
said it better.
beautiful. So you were mentioning something before about when you went to become a carer, that you didn't know exactly who you are. And for anybody out there who is thinking, well, I mean, I want to become something in a certain area. It might be in music, it might be a musician, but it might also be in a different area. How do you find your style? How do you find yourself?
I think about it a great deal, especially when I talk to people that I see potential in, and I see them being unable to convert that, or maybe they have inhibiting factors inside themselves that just makes them unable to see what they bring to the table. And I would say in general, it's not a good idea. Not a good idea. What I've observed, to look at the outcome too much. Look at what you got. Look at what you do. Don't think of where to apply it. First of all, think of your tools. What are my tools? What in what surroundings I realize I'm doing something that comes out of me that is just different than the others. Just follow your own tools to the goal instead of looking through the goals that you think that they are and thinking, do I fit in there? Do I fit in there? I think that is very hard to do. Most people don't see the final goal and know that's where to go. I think it's easier to focus on your tools, to develop the tools that you got anyway by nature, and you will find the right place if you follow those breadcrumbs. That's how I do it.
And that's very fascinating, and especially when so what I it sounds like to me that you are first looking at yourself. What am I great at the same time, what am I different at, like in what areas am I different than somebody else? And that also brings me to the and then to build on that and to craft that and to hone that. So one of the things also about you is that you are, it seems to me that you really have found yourself and who you are, because also when you are somewhere, when you're outside, you're very stylish. When you're in public, like you bring some fancy sunglasses or a hat or some outfit or something that is like that immediately makes you unique or makes you a superstar, so to say. What makes a superstar?
I think the traditional definition of a superstar is somebody that serves as a template for the development of a certain skill or ability or distinguishing factor that is like the epitome of developing who you are to a certain point. In sports, it's performance. In music, it's inspiration. But it's something that the others look to and have something that they say, okay, this that you can go there. This is a place where you can go. This is a place where you can arrive. And a superstar embraces that, and has no problem with being seen for that. Of course, there's a flip side to it. There's a private personality that they don't share. That's why I wouldn't probably like to be a superstar. I love the aspect of being a role model. If I have something to share, I would love to share it with everybody, and I have no problems being seen for what I do. But also, I don't want to mislead people into having unrealistic expectations of what they should be or could be.
What comes to mind to me right now is a caricaturist, like somebody who is painting some people, for example, at a party, and they are always looking at some certain character traits or some traits around the appearance of the other person that then they exaggerate.
Yeah,
And in a way, a superstar is somebody who really exaggerates a part of themselves, makes it bigger or larger than life, and to also to be an inspiration, to be a role model, and something that others aspire to, or that just came out of. Maybe it makes sense.
yeah.
Um,
I read a great deal about there has always been, even thousands of years ago when our communities were way smaller, there has always been an exponented person, and they had a value in the social construct that was the village, or was the city, or was the tribe. There has been this function always. So that's something that just happens naturally. I still think now, with modern technology though, and the way society is going, that we're going away from the superstar the way we understood it. We have definitely taken the genius off of his pedestal. Like, I think in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, the genius was on a very high pedestal, and now the creative person is more closer to everybody else. The average musician, no matter how famous they are, they have to be closer to everybody. They have to make videos from the living room. I mean, in the 60s, you would not see Paul McCartney sitting in an average shirt in his living room and sending a video to the people. I mean, there would be a time and a place, and you would not see all the rest. And now everybody has to be normal in a way.
that's true. So we covered a few things here, and also when I think about Lennon McCartney, who is probably one of the greatest songwriting duo of all times. And you are a songwriter, and you have written way more songs than you've sung yourself. Like you have written songs for all kinds of people, also for at the Eurovision Song Contest and so on. For you, what makes a great song, and how do you write it?
I mean, when we talk about song, I think of a fairly popular song, because there's songs for different surroundings. There's songs that you would only hear in a very solemn occasion. But if I'm talking about a pop song, I think the perfect song is the one that puts you in touch with the voice of the performer, but also gives you plenty of space to find your own story in it. Like a song that's sufficiently vague or open for interpretation that you and your world just starts to explode when you listen to that song.
And how do you actually like? How is the process of writing a song? Because people know, okay, what is like? How is the job of somebody who works in a supermarket, or what is the job of somebody like who does this and that, which you see, but usually you don't see people writing a song.
True, and it's regrettable because it's such an interesting process. It's very hard to capture the process of writing a song without interfere with the process of writing a song. You know, it's a very delicate and private thing. I, for example, write bits and pieces of my songs in the most unusual times and places. Sometimes you need to unclench your brain muscles for the inspiration to flow in. So sometimes you will sit there for 2 hours trying to find the perfect melody or the perfect lyric line, and nothing would come. And then you're on the bus, and suddenly it all flows in, even though you didn't think of it. So it's very hard to pin down the creative process. It just happens, and when it happens, you need to just have something to record it. So for us,
Like you
the
take the
modern
phone and
yeah, the modern
sing it.
musician always has the memo like next to them, and when they hear the melody, you will see them on the bus doing like this. So if you see that, the chances are that it's a musician capturing a melody, you know. And then we go home and try to formalize that and put it down and chisel away. But it's a lot of like these uncontrollable moments that you then later like weave into a functional whole. Yeah,
Okay, very interesting. You're from Austria,
yeah.
and when you think about music in Austria, in general, when people think about music in Austria, you think about Mozart, you think about Strauss, like classical music. Maybe you think about the sound of music, and in let's say in the more recent history, you might think of Falco, yeah, who was also an international superstar. He was number one in the Billboard Top 100 charts with Amadeus. But besides that, in recent history, we have been, let's say, quite small. When you take away the Eurovision Song Contest, which we're going to come to in a moment, where do you see the music industry in Austria? And do you think that in general that the music industry has been gotten more global with today's instruments, that you can come from anywhere in the world and basically have a way easier path into it than it used to be?
Yeah, that's definitely true. But in the same vein, there's a few things that are still the way they used to be in terms of internationality. I would say the corporate structures are still not as interwoven as we might think it is. It's not like it's the same if you release a song in Austria or in New Zealand or in America. I mean, there are certain highways that get way more exposure, and there's a certain like being in the right physical place still is a factor. I would say it's not exactly the same thing. There's a lot of important things that happen also in person. Like not everything is online still. I noticed that. In terms of the Austrian market, I would say there is something happening now in German speaking music. I think German and Austria are melting together into like this big new German pop music market. I think the subgenre of Schlager is being absorbed by German pop music, which creates definitely a bigger whole. That's something I'm not participating in because I speak English and I sing in English. But I would say, for example, what the musician really needs in order to get his music out into the international sphere is to experience success where he is. It's very hard to create music when the people around you are not enjoying that music. Like imagine you're let's find a very crazy example. Let's imagine you're playing polka music. You want to be somewhere where people enjoy polka. For you to really, it's a community. It's something that happens in the community, like your inspiration and all that. You see people dancing, you see the vibe. It's very hard to create polka in Brazil, where nobody is interested in polka. So, and in that sense, it's really hard for an Austrian English-speaking musician to do certain things in music that are not represented around them. Like I think an Austrian musician who does international music has to make it a point to travel a whole lot, to mingle with a lot of international people, to get that inspiration. Because there's a certain style of music, there's a certain sensibility in Austria, and if you do that, you kind of be constantly inspired. But if you do something else, better travel a lot. Yeah.
And what you said actually makes perfect sense. One of the things that I've heard along the way is proximity is power. That means that you got to be in proximity with the people that you want to become or that you want to emulate or that inspire you. For example, there's a reason why the best actors or the best movies are being made in Hollywood, because everybody is there. Or like when you take back classical music, basically the Hollywood in classical music in the, let's say, 18th century or 19th century was in Vienna. So basically, all from Mozart to Beethoven to all Schubert and so on, they were all there. So you have the people there. You feed off each other. You inspire each other, and that I believe is in every field. So whatever you want to achieve in your life, whatever career you want to pursue, you got to look, where are the people that can help you move forward in that direction. Another big
also the
melting
people
pot.
that inspire you to move forward.
Yes. Absolutely. Another big melting pot of this, especially in the European community, in songwriting and also in music, is the European Song Contest. You have been in the Eurovision Song Contest. You've been there twice. First, as you from writing songs to being first twice, twice
before, yeah.
Mm-hmm. First twice as writing songs and also being a background singer, and then you came back as a singer for your home country, because before there was a different country. So first of all, for somebody who has no idea what the Eurovision Song Contest is, or maybe even somebody who has seen it on TV but has never been there live, describe to us, what is the Eurovision Song Contest?
Okay, so the Eurovision Song Contest was designed as a place where the national broadcaster sends an act in all of Europe. They come together. It's basically a big company party. So there's a so-called union, a broadcasting union, and every TV station in that broadcasting union has the right to send an act to this annual competition. It very much feels like an official function, and has a bit of a diplomatic feel to it. You also meet up with the ambassador in that country. Like when it's in Sweden, you meet up with the Austrian ambassador in Sweden. So you really feel like you're there on a diplomatic mission. I think I heard originally it had that secondary purpose to after the wars and stuff like that, to create that cultural interaction. And that's really what it is, and that's what makes Eurovision so special. I don't think there can be a music competition that feels like that if you don't feel like you're representing where you're from. So that's very specific.
And there are hundreds of millions of people watching it in Europe, but also around the world. Now, Australia has been part of it for some time and so on. And it's growing even outside of Europe. But is it something like European Games for musicians? Is it also something where you get inspired by others?
It's like the Olympics, basically. Olympics of singing.
Olympics of singing, but and at the same time, it's like, how is the feel? How is the feel when you go in there? Or how was your first impression when the first time you were there for Bulgaria? Is it correct?
Yeah, the feel is that, imagine 40 something countries sending their delegations. So that's 20 to 40 people, their own press teams, their own, like the whole nucleus. It's like an emissary. So you have 40 different countries represented as delegations there. You have people from all over Europe traveling to the city where the Eurovision Song Contest is being held. So it's a huge melting pot of cultures. As a delegation member, you feel like you're mingling with all these different cultures. You have very many opportunities and many functions where you can kind of connect with a variety of people. There's plenty, like every day there's some reception or a party. The Israeli delegation makes their party, and the Irish delegation makes their party, and everybody river dances, and so it really feels like 2 weeks of cultural interaction. So that, for me, that is the Eurovision Song Contest. Unfortunately, the viewer at home only sees the semifinal and the final, but the event is so much bigger. I keep saying that whenever people ask me about it, because that is really what sets it apart.
Wow. I remember when it was in Vienna in 2015, and I was hosting the Eurovision Song Contest Cafe at the time. Like, there was a separate venue, and there were all kinds of people
Really?
from all over the world coming, and it was really fun. We had a press conference also with Conchita Wurst, who won the last year and brought actually the song contest to Vienna. So you were third in 2018. How was that? And also, how did that change your career and your life?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Eurovision to find out if it's time to come back as a solo artist. I had never been a solo artist. I had never had a release as a solo artist. I've been a songwriter. I produced songs. I wrote albums. I coached people. I did features way back in the day when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, but I never had a solo project. So for me, that was like, okay, let's try that. Let's write one song. And if that feels good in this very international surrounding, I really like that stage. There isn't a more attractive stage than this. So might as well start here. And if it feels good, just continue. And that's what I did.
Well, you might be inclined to say it worked.
Yeah, it did work. Yeah. Yeah, that was for
So
me like the go sign. For me, that was the beginning. Yeah.
you were mentioning something, and I think this is something for many people who are on their path and who are like, where am I going to? And you have done many different things, and you, I think, are a prime example of somebody who has done basically many different things in their lives, but still has a common denominator. And so my question for you is, how do you actually choose a career path, or how do you choose a career?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak to the way I do it. Like I said, sometimes I would assume a lot of people have to create their career. They're not given to them. You know, like some people, okay, they say I want to be a fireman, and the structures are there. But as an artist, for example, or there's many other jobs that are not so clear cut in what constitutes them. What is the skill set that you have to do to succeed? There are a lot of new professions that are very murky in terms of understanding what it takes to become that. So that's why I say really follow what skills interest you, and let them come together organically. And when it comes to my career, I couldn't have designed what I did, but now as I see slowly the finished product, it makes perfect sense. But can you tell someone, do 5 years of social work, be a personal trainer, be a singer, a producer, songwriter, and then do acting and watch it become a career? Yeah, it's hard to design. So you have to just follow and trust that all these skills will form a whole.
So what's next now for you? Because I know that one of the things that you are actually working on, and that you're also right now taking classes, is acting. And there's also
Yeah.
something on the horizon. So tell us about that. And why
Acting
acting?
is, yeah. Well, acting is my first passion. Music was my identity. I didn't have time to call it a passion because it was already who I was. I always looked at other singers who maybe didn't have the background that I had, the early exposure that I had, and I saw this face in their eyes. I saw this glimmer of wonder where everything is just new and you don't judge anything. You're just happy you're there. That is acting for me. I don't have any like snobbish expectations as to what is good and what is not so good, what is cool or not so cool. I'm just happy that I'm part of the process, that it changes me. And I never had that in music because I was too early, too deep into it. And so I really enjoy just training to be an actor, to be a good actor. I go to school. I'm doing plays. I will be doing a play next year, early next year, with the Open House Theater where I play the lead. And I just try to soak up every bit of experience that there is to have. And the funny thing is, I have no idea where it leads, and I have no intention. I don't really care. I just really like becoming a good actor.
So you don't have like the goal of, I don't know, winning an Oscar or something, or it's just like, let's go with the flow and let's make it feel good.
Yeah, I just know for a fact that it needs to happen. I know for a fact that it's what's up next for me, and everything else we'll see. I don't need a career. I mean, I have invested 25 years into being a singer and a musician, so it's not like a necessity, not at all. It's actually a distraction if you want to look at it rationally. But I just feel that it makes me, it will make me a better performer as a musician as well. And yeah, it just serves who I am as an artistic person. Yeah.
Wow. Just to wrap it up, because our time has almost come to an end here, some quick fire or rapid fire questions. What's one piece of advice that you would like to give to somebody who is just starting out on their journey?
Try everything that is fun.
All right. Awesome. Who is somebody that you admire or look up to?
Oh, so many people. I admire everybody who's brave. I don't even want to say one word, but there's many people who are clearly brave to do what they did.
Wow, I love that. The best book that you've ever read and why?
My favorite book is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. It's a science fiction epic. It's one of the great ones. I would say it's featured on every serious top 30 ever written book list in the field of science fiction and fantasy. And Bradley Cooper is trying to make a film out of it has been trying to produce it for 10 years or so. So it's a really great book.
He's waiting for you, I think.
Exactly.
And what's one thing that you cannot live without?
Physical activity.
Very nice. So if somebody would like to find out more about you, or somebody would like to get in touch, what's the best way where to find you?
The easiest way is to just click the email button on my Instagram page. For all the different things that I do, I have a separate management, so it's quite confusing. But if you press on that button, it will get where it needs to be.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm going to link that also in the show notes. Any last 30-second closing thought that you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would like to invite everybody to not forget that working is supposed to be fun. Is supposed to instill wonder and excitement. And if there's no excitement, you're not doing the right thing, and you're not being the best way that you can be.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for all your inspiration and wisdom. Once again, Cesár Sampson.
Thank you, Ronny.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. To make this content even more valuable for you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, and also share this video with somebody you care about who absolutely needs to see this. Thank you very much. Have an outstanding day and see you next time.